It's time again for Talking Trade, sponsored by MMAC's World Trade Association and Michael Best Strategies.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff Mayers from WizPolitics.com and WizBusiness.com, here hosting Talking Trade. And joining me today is Mark Rhoda-Reis, and he directs DATCP's Bureau of Export and Business Development. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, and appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. You know, ag exports are always very interesting to me. And so there's a new report out from your bureau that capsulizes what happened in Wisconsin and the nation. Let's just start big picture. What happened, in the, nationwide in terms of ag exports, and what's Wisconsin's place in that?
Absolutely. So this year was, as you're seeing in the news and information, a bit down from the previous year. 2022 was a record year for the U.S. and for Wisconsin. For Wisconsin, it was 4.22 billion, largest on record. And whenever you go to those kinds of peaks, oftentimes it's difficult to maintain that really high level. But this year at 3.87 billion, it's the third largest year on record for our agricultural exports. Number of factors contributed to that, but we still have very strong business, very strong exports for our international producers, agricultural producers and processors.
Right. So, and then Wisconsin's rank went from 13 in 2022 to a number 11 in the country in 2023. So our 3.9 billion in ag-related exports held us well. So what are some of the highlights there? I was looking at this: soybeans up double digits. That didn't surprise me too much. Meat cuts, though. Explain the rise in meat cuts.
Well, I think part of it's demand, and I think supply from other locations around the world. But I think also it's a lot of the efforts in the promotions that Wisconsin Beef Council and the organizations in the state, the companies that are exporting in the state are doing around the world. And it was interesting for us too. Meat cuts had not necessarily been a top in that growth. It's a strong category for us. We have a few major processors in the state, and we're seeing those cuts grow in markets like Taiwan and in Hong Kong, so in Asia, as well as in other parts of the world. Of course, Mexico, our second largest market, now was up considerably, and meats certainly contributed to that as well.
So we're talking about sausages primarily, right?
In this case, that category, when we talk about meat cuts, it's actually the beef muscle cuts.
Oh, okay.
So it's beef products, frozen and fresh. In a lot of cases, typically we are up, as you remember from other conversations we've had, that prepared meats, and that's one of our largest categories overall, are those sausages, those prepared meats. They didn't grow as much during this past year. Still strong, still a large category for us. But it was interesting for us to see those meat cuts grow, and in a few markets that we haven't seen that in as much previous years.
So another highlight is sauces, not sausages, sauces and yeast. That's hard to say 3 times fast. Anyway, well, explain that category and why that went up.
It's a pretty broad category, and it certainly, what we've broken it down. Okay, what are the strongest things that we're doing in Wisconsin? Because it's prepared foods overall, so it's a little bit of a catch-all category. Now within that is yeasts, and we've got a couple of folks in the state who are yeast exporters. We're actually a major exporter of yeast products, and as well those prepared sauces. If you think of folks like Kikkoman, for example. That's a prepared sauce. So we don't know exactly all of the specific products of those, but as a general category, that's again it's our largest this year, and is usually in the top 3 or so products annually that we ship. We just have a lot of companies doing those kinds of preparations. Everybody from barbecue sauces to soy sauce.
Right. So I think that's interesting. We all, we often talk about commodities, the raw commodities, but in Wisconsin, it's sort of like, we're taking the raw commodities and making them into these consumable products, which I think is, helping define what Wisconsin is good at, right? We're the machining capital of the world, and so this kind of fits into making the most of the commodities.
Absolutely. We grow things in Wisconsin for sure, as you see in those commodity products, but we make things too. And as you alluded to, a lot of those manufactured products, we have a number of strengths across it. Overall, our agricultural exports usually run between 13 and 15% of the total export dollar that we do in the state. But then within that, all of those things, so cheese, is a manufactured product in some senses. It is a product that we make. It's value add, and as well those sauces. And so adding those values to that, I think, gives us a lot of strength in the state, gives it that diversity of product as we're exporting. So in some cases, when we've got an area that goes down, then we have some others that help lift it up.
Right. Okay, just quickly about our trading partners. Canada is #1 by a mile. But Mexico jumped back to #2 in over China. And so, to what do you owe that?
I think it's a couple of things. One, Mexico had some economic difficulties. Certainly, started off with with the tariff wars, with the trade wars that we had. Then we rolled into COVID. So they had a number of challenges, hit them harder than it did, I think, other parts of the world. Not that it wasn't a challenge for everyone. And as we've seen, they've started to climb back out of that. I think some of it too is from that reshoring that's happening. A lot of that business that's coming back from Asia, from China, back into Mexico and into as our next door neighbor, because we're suppliers of a lot of products to those manufacturing areas. So overall, their economy has gotten a bit stronger. The peso to the dollar is relatively stable, that it has been. So when there aren't drastic changes, then the purchasing power is greater amongst those folks. And as you can see, record year for Mexico, $450 million roughly. So and we need that to be a strong market for us. It's a great market for newer to export folks. And of course, the existing exporters, they are our next door neighbors. So less complexity moving in. We've got the USMCA agreement, a number of things that go in our favor for that. That's strong. I think on the other side of it, China, we've got trade tensions that have been ongoing in China. We still have a number of tariffs up against aluminum and steel, some metals and some other products, certainly concerns around intellectual property protection. So a lot of those things that we're still trying to help balance it out between the US and China, those tensions, and as well, they're looking at some economic challenges as their growth is slowing, certainly the credit crisis that they have in the housing. So a number of those things have begun to push those down for us, which it's an important market for us, and we certainly want to be able to continue selling products, especially agricultural products. They're needed in that country. But it's been a tough year for them. Looks like it will be going forward.
Yeah, so that could be some of the headwinds that might be encountered in 2024.
Absolutely.
So we want to talk about a couple other things here. By the way, people can see the report by going to the Department of Ag and Consumer Protection, DATCP, and find the export report there. So there's a trade mission to Chile. Your staff is often, out there promoting abroad, but this is a different kind of trip to Chile. So why Chile? And tell us about the trade mission.
Great, and thank you for mentioning that. When it's a strong year, we do trade promotion activities, so trade shows, trade missions. We do inbound buyer missions, those things that primarily are helping companies meet their prospective buyers. And then as well, overall, we're promoting Wisconsin products, agricultural products in this case. So we've selected Chile as a market to have our secretary, Romansky, travel and lead the mission with us to be able to open some more doors in the market. Chile it's a smaller country in South America compared to Argentina and Brazil, Colombia, but they have a very strong economy. Their GDP is higher than other nations, certainly better purchasing power amongst the general population. So it's a strong opportunity market for us, and we want to make sure that we're getting a larger share. We've got a lot of competition out of Europe. We have competition coming from other countries in Latin America, competition coming out of Australia and New Zealand, just because of their location in the world. So it's not necessarily an easy market for us, but they're open to U.S. goods. And so what we want to be able to do is make sure that we're getting that share of their plate, essentially across all of our products. And that's not just the finished food products, certainly promoting cheeses and our processed food, those sauces and yeasts, for example, but also in craft distilled spirits and beers in the market. Those are important exports and beginning to be more so for us. But also livestock and genetics products, because we also sell those products to help them produce locally. 90% of our milk goes into cheese, but more locally, their milk is going into fluid milk. It makes sense because it's much harder to ship fluid products around the world, especially milk. So to be able to sell them the feeds and the supplements, as well as the live animals and the genetics, to help them grow, those are also strong markets for us. We want to make sure that we're promoting those across the board. When we have a secretary with us, and it opens more doors, because now you've got a leading official from a leading agricultural state in the U.S. being able to meet with the folks, with the government people, as well as industry organizations in market. So that's the choice for this year. Last year we were in the UK, so we felt that South America was an important market for us to be able to bring that resource, to bring that strength for the benefit of those companies that will be traveling with us. There are actually still some openings in that. We've got a few more companies we'd like to bring on board with us, so we certainly put the call out to anybody who's interested in that market to make sure that they sign up with us here.
And that's coming up in May.
Thank you. Yes, it's in May. That 6th through the 11th of May are the dates for that.
Okay. And you wanted to talk about this, and I think this is good for this audience to talk about the International Market Access Grants. Application deadline is coming up on that. When is the deadline?
It is 15th of March, actually, is coming up pretty quickly. That grant, it's a Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation grant, been around for more than a decade. Extremely useful tool for companies to help them enter and expand in global markets. It reimburses for costs, for trade shows, for registering your trademark. There's a really broad range of things that it will reimburse for to really accelerate companies' growth in the market that they feel is strongest for them. So we want to make sure that companies are making use of those funds. So we work with WEDC on that, certainly to promote it, but also funds from the Wisconsin Initiative for Agricultural Exports. That's what helps fund, for example, the trade missions that I just talked about, but also that International Market Access Grant, funding in that to help those food, forestry, and agricultural product companies to be able to make use of those. $10,000 at the base level. If they've gone through Export Tech, $25,000. So it's really significant funding to help move companies further, faster into those key markets. So we'd like, again, for as many people as possible to make use of those tax dollars that are provided in order for people to grow their business.
Okay, well, we run out of time. Very interesting stuff. Thank you, Mark Rhoda-Reis. He directs DATCP's Export and Business Development Bureau. Thanks very much, Mark, and we'll see you next time.
Very good. Thank you.
You've been listening to Talking Trade, sponsored by MMAC's World Trade Association and Michael Best Strategies.